Hi guys, it's Mary McIntyre. Welcome to another Halloween themed video, and in this one I'm going to talk you through how I'm going to design my Halloween outfit. First of all, huge thanks to my mum for sending me this amazing skeleton hand choker. I love it, it's so amazing. Now, I have been the biggest Nightmare Before Christmas fan ever since I first saw it at the cinema. And I just adore everything about that movie. But I've never ever dressed up as Sally, which, given how long ago the movie came out, is very remiss of me. So that's my plan for this year. I wanted to try and make this primarily from materials that I already had. So I didn't want to go to the fabric shop and buy loads of different bits of fabric to make this dress. The dress, there's a picture here that somebody on AliExpress was selling a kind of printed dress. I don't want to just fabric paint a plain dress. I want to actually make it patchwork, but it's quite useful for kind of getting an idea of the shape of the pieces. So what I'm going to do is watch the movie again just to make sure the shape's right, and then I will draw around something that fits me that I have in the wardrobe and make a mock-up that's just plain fabric. And then once I've got that so that it fits me, I can then draw where these different pieces are, and then I can take it apart and cut out the relevant things. I'll label them all quite carefully. Because I'm doing this from fabrics from my fabric stash, it's not going to look absolutely precisely like this. It'll be obvious who I am, but basically I've got a variety of earthy toned kind of fabrics, because the movie is very muted and kind of blue filtered almost. Everything's very kind of not brightly coloured. So I've got this kind of stripy fabric. I've got lots of this sort of already patchwork old duvet in a sort of pinky colour. I've got lots of green linen, which is really nice. I've got some kind of dark burgundy plain fabric. I've got some scraps of kind of upholstery or curtain fabric, some other greens here, some with patterns, some just marbled, and a little bit of tan coloured plain. So any of these panels that have got some kind of print on them and I only have the plain fabric, I can do that with fabric paint or my fabric markers and make it look like the dress. So it won't be a carbon copy, so this isn't kind of cosplay accuracy, but be pretty obvious who I am by you seeing the rest of the costume. Now, again, this year we are going to be kind of keeping social distancing in place, so I don't want people coming to the front door, which means I will be outside the whole night with my socially distanced treat dispenser. So I will be freezing if I'm just wearing a tiny dress. So what I'm going to do, instead of painting my body with the stitches and the kind of joins of her ragdoll body, I've got some grey leggings, which are really nice and warm, and a grey polo neck jumper. So I will make sure that I've got the stitch marks in the right place on those so that I can wear those and be warm while I'm kind of hanging around outside. What I'm going to also do on the polo neck jumper is take the sides in with some black paint. So just paint those out so that I've got a long thin neck. And when I do the makeup, which I will show you on camera as well, I will basically try to cut off my chin a little bit with the body paint so that I've got a more rounded face shape with that long thin neck. Obviously, making a wig is beyond my skill set, so I've bought a waist length red wig, which I am in love with. It's just, I dabbled with red hair a couple of years ago and I just love red hair, so that just all that long red hair is amazing. So that's the plan. I'm going to watch the movie again and get an idea what's going to work on my feet, because I've seen some pictures of Sally just with little shoes, and I've seen some others where it looks like she's got some kind of leg warmers on. Anything that's going to make me warm, I'm definitely all about that, because I am going to be really cold out there by myself. So yeah, I hope you enjoy this process, and I'll try to remember to film as much of this as possible, and hopefully together we can make this costume look really good. If you want to see more like this, don't forget to subscribe. The button's down below. Okay, so I spent 2 days drafting a pattern and making it fit my body, and then last night at about midnight I thought, you know what, this is just not going to work for this dress. So plan B, I have a dress in my wardrobe that is closer in shape to the one that I was working on, to what I'm trying to make, and I don't wear it. And to be honest, if I can make this work, I will probably be more likely to wear it as a patchwork dress anyway. This has the crossover shapes, it's going to make it a lot easier, and what I'm going to do is basically just mark out the kind of vague shapes of the patchwork of Sally's dress. I have ye old bag of different fabrics here, and I will just cut the shapes and pin them to the dress and then just stitch them directly onto it. If I use a stretch stitch, and the fact most of these pieces are going to be cut on the bias, there should be a bit of give. That way there's no fastenings to put on, it's just straight over the head, and then there's a little tie cord for around the waist. I'm going to have to slightly adapt the shape here so that the pieces come up and give me a bit of a shoulder so that I can attach some cap sleeves. Otherwise I think this will be more straightforward, and once it's on and I know that I can get it on and off, I can then figure out doing all of the stitch marks between each of them. In theory I will just use black wool and just hand stitch that, but if I run out of time, which is a real possibility, then I will draw them on with a fabric marker. But I would like to stitch them because I think it'll look more authentic. So yeah, I've watched the movie and made some changes to the pattern that is on this piece of paper that I had the other day, and there are some things that are slightly different at the back. Otherwise I think it should be fairly straightforward. So I'm just going to have a think about it, draw some shapes and get cutting and pinning. All the sections are marked out now, all the way around. Anywhere where the section is going to wrap all the way around, I'll do it in different pieces, so that way it will still hang a little bit nicer. So yeah, I think I just need to sit down now and remember which of these sections corresponds to which colour and which of my fabrics I'm going to use to represent each of those. And yeah, in theory, every time I say something's going to be easy, it ends up being a nightmare, but in theory this will be simpler to do than the plan A that I spent ages on, so let's see if it works. I've used an iron exactly twice since the beginning of the pandemic. However, I think I need to use it now because some of these fabrics are so crumpled that I can't possibly drape and try and cut anything. So I'll decide for sure which of these pieces I'm going to use. The ones that have kind of circular patches actually within a big body of fabric, I'm going to put the patches on first because it'll be way easier to do that than to try to stitch some circular patches onto the dress itself once everything's pinned on. So I'll cut a few circles of those and stitch those on. There's one particular fabric actually that has those lines on. Otherwise, yeah, I'm just going to have to make my decision about which I'm using and then go and iron it, because I can't use it when it's crumpled like this. Every time I put my fabric away in my stash, I fold it nicely, but when it comes back out again, it just looks like it's been slept in. So I hate ironing, but yeah, it's worth doing because this step is just going to be impossible if your fabric looks like this. But yeah. Fabric's all pressed. I'm going to stop for some dinner and then I'll try and carry on before I fall asleep this evening. what looks like an explosion in a fabric delivery lorry on the M25. The dress won't sit properly because there are so many pins in here that it's pulling it down. But I think I'm going to have to sew some of these on now because I'm just getting in my own way with pinning everything. Initially I've kind of fitted around the top area, but I've had to allow for the fact the fabric underneath is stretchy, and in order to get the dress on it needs to be able to stretch. So I'm going to sew this with a stretch stitch. Hopefully that will work. I've sort of tried to vaguely follow the shapes of the original dress, and I'm now just kind of hanging panels down here. I kind of feel like I needed to start down here, but I don't want to unpin all of this, so I'm just trying to think whether to do the bottom layer, unpin the middle, get all the bottom layer stitched on and leave those hanging. But to be honest, I can just fold a hem on here. The important thing at the moment is to get this bit done, because at the moment the pins are in the way, everything's just kind of not sitting right. So I think I need to turf the sleeping cat off my sewing chair and go and at least stitch some of these bits on. Sausage, I need my chair back. I need my chair. Oh, okay, perfect. So I've sewn all the top pieces on. I think because I've used a stretch stitch and I tried to stretch the fabric as I sewed it, it means that this is now too long. I'm going to possibly have to take something off the shoulders, but I'll wait till I've finished everything else. It's a bit lumpy around the waist, but that's because there are several layers of fabric in different areas, and I've obviously chosen a bad place to pin those on. I haven't stitched these bottom bits on, or the bottom of these bits, because I'm going to work from the underneath up from now on. So I'm going to get these other bottom pieces on first and sew them, and then kind of do the joining bits here so the bottom layer is underneath all of these top pieces. I tried it on and it's looking a bit lumpy and not very good, but we'll see how it looks. All of the bottom covered up now, and all I need to do once I've stitched the underneath of those and then those top layers is just add something to this little black flap here, and that will be all the main pieces on. I'm then going to kind of have a look at it again and kind of add some random patches. I've definitely deviated a little bit from the original. I was just kind of having fun just placing these pieces, to be honest. I already realised it doesn't look much like the original, so I kind of stopped trying. No, but I think once they get stitched on, it's going to look better than it does at the moment, with all the baggy bits and the pins in and stuff like that. I'll be glad when this is finished, because kneeling down doing this is making my feet get horrendous pins and needles. But yeah, it's looking good, and I've deliberately left the bottom all kind of ragged, different shaped hem. I might go around and trim a few bits of that. We'll see how it looks. Back to the sewing machine. everything finished now except for the sleeves. Now I'm just going to do a really simple capped sleeve. So I've just got a long straight piece of fabric. I'm not pinning it all the way around, but I've just pinned it around part of the armhole. Put one more pin in there. And then rather than leave it as a straight edge, I'm just going to taper it a little bit. So I'm just going to cut that straight first at the back. So basically if I hang it down like that, it'll be fine, it'll have the kind of pointed bits, but if I taper it, it will just take that corner off and make it sit a bit nicer. So it's not going to be kind of like a true sleeve, and I'm not going to kind of worry about it being even either side, but just taking that little corner off just gives it a bit of a nicer finish. Okay, the sewing part's completed, so now the finishing touches for the dress is to put the black stitches on. Fortunately, the original dress, if you look at the photographs, the stitches are not even, and some of them are slightly crooked, some are bigger, some are smaller. I'm just basically going to do that even if I tried to do them straight. I literally can't do hand sewing and make them even. But all I'm doing is using some black wool and a bodkin. It's quite hard getting through all of these layers of fabric, but I'm just kind of wiggling the needle and persevering. And even just with this little bit that I've done, it really does make a difference to how the dress looks. There's a lot of this to do. I'm starting with the front, and if I run out of time then the back will be covered by the wig anyway, but I really hope I do get that finished. I'm going to do all of the panels and around the patches too, and I think it looks really nice now the stitches are on. I've also ironed it, which helped. I'm now crumpling it again, but just pressing it made it look a little better. So I'm just going to keep going with this. So the dress is finished. We've just binge watched loads of Babylon 5, and I started the stitches on here last night, but while we were watching Babylon 5 I just basically sat and just stitched through all of these layers and put those black stitches on. And actually the minute I started putting those on, it felt like the dress just came together somehow. It doesn't really matter that it's deviated from being exactly like Sally's dress, because as soon as I put those stitches on, it just suddenly became Sally's dress, which is great. So I don't know, I just think it looks really cool. There's something still not right about the front here, and it looks a bit strange when it's on. It's a bit lumpy, but actually the back looks really nice. It's a shame that the wig comes down to about here and it's going to cover most of that up, but you know, never mind. You get the gist of what's going on here. It's definitely a patchwork dress, and that's the important bit. So next step is for me to get my leggings and polo neck jumper on, and once I've got them on I can then figure out where the stitch lines are going to go. I'm not stitching those by hand because they're going to be on stretchy jersey fabrics, and it's just not going to work trying to sew that even with a stretch stitch. So I'm just going to paint those on, and hopefully my acrylic paint pen will do it. I'm very, very glad that I'll be wearing something underneath it, because the way that it's kind of warped means it's slightly lower cut than it was before, but I'll have a polo neck jumper on, so it's all good. So the day after I finished the dress, and we had a lovely anniversary yesterday, even though I spent a lot of it stitching giant stitches on my patchwork dress. There's just a couple of things left to do now. First of all, I need to put on the polo neck jumper and the leggings, and then draw the seams and the stitch marks, which should be straightforward enough. I actually have these fabric markers. They're basically just like Sharpies, to be honest with you, but I've tested them on a hidden area, and I think this is going to work, and it'll be way easier than painting it with a brush and acrylic paint. So we'll see how that goes. Hopefully it doesn't soak through the fabric and actually draw on my skin. I do have rubbing alcohol, so if that happens, I have a way of getting that off my skin. The other thing is, if you look at what Sally has on her feet, it's a pair of very small black shoes, but with some kind of woolly stripy socks, and in some lights in the movie it's black and white, and in other times it looks like it's a kind of red and white. But I don't have any black and white kind of loose socks, so I'm just going to use these ones, and these colours will look okay with the patchwork of the dress anyway. So all I'm going to do is cut the bottom off those so I can just pull them on over the top of my boots and just kind of scrunch them up around my ankles. So that should be straightforward enough. So yeah, let's get on with that. Okay, I'm going to do a practice run of Sally's makeup now that the stitches are on the leggings and the jumper. First of all, I'm going to try to block out my eyebrows. I've never done this before, so hopefully my eyebrows won't fall out. I'm just using a washable glue stick, as everybody does in the videos that I've seen. Crikey, they're good and glued. I hope that washes off. Just give it a minute for that to dry down before I put the concealer on. Okay, I'm going to mark out the eyes with a grey eyeliner. This is the bit that is going to be basically white. Using my Freedom SFX palette, and I'm going to use a white cream. Just grab a clean brush. Looks so bizarre. So I'm going to set that with a bit of the white powder in this same palette. So I'm going to get a different brush, probably that one, this grey here, and basically use this tiny brush to paint the rest of my face. The palette is too small for me to put a really big complexion brush in it, so I'm going to start off going around the eyes. This is a bit of a darker grey actually than I want, but if I put powder on it, it may lighten it up a little bit. Okay, I'm going over with the lighter grey, and that's closer to the colour that I'm wanting. I wish I'd actually put that on my face first, because it may have been alright. It just looked really pale on my hand. I've left the mouth shape out because I've got to put the lips on. It's really shiny at the moment, but I'm going to powder this down. It's still a little bit dark, but I now know for on the night I will definitely do the pale grey first. Yeah, I think I'll contour around the eyes with powder, so I'm gonna try to set this down. If I use white powder, that may lighten it up a little bit more as well, so I'll see how that looks. Okay, that's better. God, my eyes, they just will not ever start running. It's running down the makeup before I've even finished. So annoying. Okay, I'm going to contour a little bit around the eyes. It already looks like they're a little bit darker immediately after the white bit, but I'm going to add a little bit of blue, not much. Again, another Corpse Bride product from Revolution, and I'm going to go into this really, really dark indigo blue. It's the first time I've used this palette. I am so in love with it that I kind of don't want to use it, but I bought it to use and I really, really need to. It's so, so beautiful. I love the Corpse Bride as well. I was really torn between being Emily and Sally. Those Tim Burton's female characters are just so awesome. Okay, stitches next. I need to decide where the pupil's going to go as well. First, eyelashes. I'm just doing the pupils, and I want them to be visible when my eyes are open as well as when my eyes are closed. Okay, I just need to put some white eyeliner on, which is in the other room, and then get my costume on. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Gosh, this dress was a nightmare to make. There are lots of things I'd do differently if I did this again, but I think altogether the final result, it just kind of worked. So I'm really pleased with how that turned out. I'm also glad that I did the makeup ahead of Halloween, because I can then kind of do things slightly differently with regards to the base and stuff like that. But it's also reassuring to know that this outfit is so hot. I am literally boiling right now, so I'm going to be fine sat outside on Halloween wearing this. So yeah, it was really good fun to do. I hope you enjoyed it. So have a really happy Halloween, have a really safe Halloween, look after each other, stay safe, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye for now.